Good day, students. Last time, we discussed government, a political unit, a system of order for a nation and state, that has a huge responsibility, not just on creating and enforcing the rules of society, but also protecting and ensuring the wealth of the people. And as we discussed those things, we also learned that there are different forms of government. The responsibilities of all governments are similar, but the obligations of the rulers are executed in different means, depending on what form of government is present in a certain state. As we move forward to our next topic, do you agree that traditions are always outdated, and modern things means progress? How have you say so? Now, we are going to discuss the state, nation in the era of globalization. As we deepen our knowledge about our topic for today, first, let's define those terms. The term state refers to the political structure of an organized community that lives under a government. When we say political structure, it talks about two institutions or groups, and their relations, patterns of interactions in political systems. A state is also related to, but is not synonymous to government, and country of the nation, which gives rise to the concept of the nation-state. When we talk about nation-state, it refers to a political entity with the legitimate power to control the use of force over a people with common customs, origin, history, or language. State is the highest form of association, due to the fact that the liability of the state is not just to manage its people by protecting and maintaining the peace and order, but also distributing the scarce resources for the wealth of its jurisdiction. But, what it must for an entity to be called state? For an entity to be considered a state, it should compose of 4 elements. These elements are population, territory, sovereignty, and government. Population refers to the people that compose the state. Without the people, there is nothing to be governed by the government. This involves all the citizens of a state. But, at a certain point, it even includes the foreigners staying in the state, since they are also covered by the sovereignty of the state. Territory. This is commonly referred to as a country, like Philippines, that has an archipelagic geographic feature, recognized to be a distinct national entity. In addition, it is a place where the people are located, and it includes the land, natural resources, and airspace. Government. It is an institution empowered by the people to control and administer the state. It is through the government that the will of the state, such as sustaining the wealth of the people and enforcing the laws, is expressed and realized. It is also a political direction, and exercised control over the action of the citizens of the state. Sovereignty is the ability of the state to conduct its affairs and enact its authority over its citizens within the territory, without interference from outside forces. There are 2 aspects of sovereignty. First is internal sovereignty. It is the ability or power of the state to rule over the people inside its territory. Second is External sovereignty. It refers to a state that is fully independent, and no foreign power can control its internal affairs or freedom from outside influences or foreign intervention. At this juncture, how can we say that the state has legitimate sovereignty? First is, when it is recognized and respected by its people. For example, we are now facing a pandemic crisis, and our government implement or impose safety precautionary measures, such as wearing of face masks and face shields when going out or being in public establishments, maintaining social distancing, and regularly sanitizing our hands to prevent the spreading of the COVID-19. Second is, through recognition by other states, or other community of nations. In international relations, countries recognize each other as possessing the essential elements of the state, and being able to exercise sovereignty. On the other hand, we will also define nation. Etymologically speaking, the word nation was taken from the Latin word naci, which means born, giving the word a racial or ethnic meaning. It is also defined as a large group of people who share common characteristics, such as language, traditions, and ethnicity. They also identified themselves as a distinct and unified group with common interests and aspirations. So, if you were to choose and adapt a cultural trait from other nation, what would that be? Why? Let's now elaborate further the concept of nationhood. It plays an integral part of politics, as citizens work together, and are united by the common cause arising from their shared identity. Nationhood is also a source of political integrity, that unites the people behind the state. For example, this is often seen during wars, when the state calls on its people to defend the motherland against enemies. In your opinion, how does nationhood influence politics and governance? Now that we already understand the concepts of state and nation, let's proceed to the last part, which is globalization. It refers to the gradual process of political, economic, and cultural integration, brought about by increased exchange of products, ideas, and technology throughout the world. It is also described as the emergence of a borderless world. Globalization is predominantly understood and studies as an economic development. Thus, economic globalization is characterized by internationalization of markets, trade, finance, investment, privatization, deregulation, and pro-market re-regulation, as well as rapid integration of trade, finance, and investment. With that in mind, how does globalization influence world, in terms of politics, economic, and culture? And now, let's move on to globalization and political development. During the 20th century, globalization had become advanced by different political developments. In the 1920s, in the desire to promote peace and security in Europe and in the world, Western governments spearheaded the certain of the League of Nations, as a forum for diplomatic negotiations. League of Nations was an international organization, founded after the Paris Peace Conference in 1919. The organization's goals included disarmament, preventing war through collective security, settling disputes between countries through negotiation diplomacy, and improving global warfare. 1945, at this point of time, towards the end of the Second World War, members of the Allied forces organized a global union of nation-states, with the aim of preventing another global conflict. And in 1948, the United Nations, or the UN, was founded with the goal of promoting global peace, cooperation, and dialogue among countries. The Philippines is one of the founding members of the United Nations. 70 years later, the United Nations is maintaining international peace and security. It promotes development and giving humanitarian assistance to those in need, upholding international law, protecting human rights, and promoting democracy. To end the discussion, what do you think is the overall impact of globalization in the national politics?
Happy learning at home with lessons made easy by Olivarian GoTeach. One proud Olivarian.